We are already to the end of 2025, which means we need to start thinking about predictions to make within the fishing industry for 2026. This is something I've done every year since I started my YouTube channel. I really like to take all of the trends that I'm seeing, all of the little things I hear within the industry, and try to make predictions as to what we'll see. But before I can get into the 26 predictions, I like to go back and review what I said in 2024 as to what I thought would happen for 2025. So I actually went back and watched the video I released at the end of 2024 to see whether or not my predictions came through. And I feel like I did a pretty good job. And I'll link that video at the end of this one if you want to go back and watch that. But we're going to break down those predictions to see how well I did. And I want to hear from you guys. Do you think I nailed it, or did I miss it and I was off the mark? And before I break down the predictions, I do want to remind you, I do have a members only channel where we get in depth on a lot of these predictions, talking about industry stuff, talking about behind the scenes stuff. So if that interests you, you might want to check out my members only channel. We do monthly live streams, additional monthly videos. You have direct access to me. So check that out if that interests you. And we really do break down a lot of what I'm going to talk about here in very good detail. So the first prediction that I made for 2025, this one I felt like was kind of a no-brainer, but it was that we would continue to see domination of forward-facing sonar baits for 2025. And without a doubt, I feel like that is something that we saw where the majority of baits that were being released were geared more towards forward-facing sonar than anything else. So if you look at all the new products that came out, so many different types of minnow style soft plastics, lots of jig heads, not too many hard baits, not too many new baits that were geared not towards forward-facing sonar. You got the dice style baits that came out, just a lot of baits that were really marketed. Doesn't mean they only work with forward-facing sonar, but it means the marketing approach was that, hey, these are baits you're going to want to use. And I think we just continue to see how dominant forward-facing sonar technology is at a high-level tournament standpoint. Pretty much every event was one using it. There were a few one-offs where it definitely wasn't the main factor, but for the most part, forward-facing sonar dominated again on the tournament trails. So from that standpoint, no-brainer that we're seeing the companies release products that are geared towards that. Now, for 26, we'll talk a little bit more about that in another video where I'll make my 26 predictions. But with tournaments starting to create rules moving away from it, the question is, will we continue to see companies invest so much into that style of bait? And we'll discuss that at a later time. So that was the first prediction. I feel like I did pretty good. I don't feel like that was a hard one, though. So the second prediction that I made had to do with the return of the crankbait. For several years, I felt like the crankbait had been neglected, and I just felt like it was ready to really have another resurgence. And when I looked at the tournament schedules for 2025, there were a lot of events that I knew crankbait could play well. And in fact, I do feel like the crankbait did do really well, especially early in the year. The early tournaments, several of them were won on the crankbait. Several of them were won on lipless crankbaits. Like the crankbait, the various crankbaits, whether it was a shallow runner, a deep runner, lipless, they had a really good stronghold early in the year. I definitely feel like they fell off a little bit as we moved into the summer months and the few fall tournaments that were there. But in general, we had way more crankbaits perform at a high level in those tournaments in 2025 than I feel like we had probably in the previous 2 or 3 years combined. So I do think crankbaits played a major factor, and I think we'll probably continue to see them just kind of regain a stronghold within the industry, because they truly are one of the best baits at creating reaction strikes and one of the best baits at catching big fish. So that was the second prediction. I feel like I did a pretty good job. Didn't nail it, but did pretty good. I think the crankbait was a player. The third one, I mentioned that I thought we would continue to see rising product costs across all categories within the fishing industry. Man, at the time of that video, I was hopeful that there was talk about tariffs, but you didn't know if the tariffs would actually take place. I think at that point, I was more under the, I was more in the category of I think it's more of a negotiating ploy and that they're not actually going to take hold. But man, the tariffs are here. The tariffs are here to stay. And with that, we have seen costs rise dramatically across the board. It does not matter if it's terminal tackle, fishing rods, fishing reels, soft baits, hard baits, boats. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's not just the fishing industry. It's pretty much everything out there has risen in price. Not by a few percent, but I mean, we're talking in general anywhere from 15 to almost 50% depending on the category of item that it is. So do I feel like I nailed this one? I think I nailed it. I wish I hadn't nailed it, but the reality is prices have increased multiple times throughout the year. Some companies have implemented multiple price increases. So, it wasn't necessarily something where we saw it just happen in the spring or when the tariffs came out. We've really seen prices from all different companies rising, and I don't think it's going to stop. I think a lot of these prices are going to continue to be implemented going into 2026 because the reality is it's not just the tariff. The tariff is one thing, but there are a lot of other factors, that are raising those prices, and I wish I could say it's going to stop. Don't know if it will for sure. I think we've seen the brunt of it for a while, but I think I hammered that one. I think that was I don't know that was a no-brainer, but that one I'd say I was spot on. I wish I had been wrong on that one. The fourth one had to do with I predicted there'd be more consolidation within the fishing industry. And that one was interesting because in 2024, there were a ton of companies that were merging or buying each other. There really was a lot of consolidation in the industry. In 2025, we didn't see nearly as much. So I don't know that I necessarily hit this one. There were a few companies that got purchased. Profound Outdoors got purchased. No major purchases from what I saw, but I think Profound Outdoors got purchased. I think Lucky Strike got purchased. Hobie Kayaks, I believe, if I'm correct on this. I think Bass Pro Shops bought them. So there's probably a few others out there. Hobie's a pretty big company. That was probably a pretty big purchase, but not anything like we saw in 2024. I'm trying to think what else we saw. There was Big Rock Outdoors, which was a big distributor. I think they got, I'm not sure if they actually filed for bankruptcy or if they got kind of saved out of bankruptcy and somebody bought them. I'm not sure exactly if that's even fully played out yet, but that was a big shakeup within the industry from a distribution standpoint. But overall, not anything huge. So this is one that I would say I was more off the mark than right. I was going more off of what we saw in 2024, but I do feel like some of that is slowed. And I don't know if that's necessarily a feature of anything other than I think a lot of the companies have been purchased already. So there's just not as much out there. Anyway, so I would say I was probably off the mark a little bit on that one. And then the last one was a high flyer. Maybe it's more of a wish on my own, but I predicted that by the end of the year, we would see Bassmaster and Major League Fishing merge. One would buy the other, or they would have a merger and be one organization. That did not happen. There's still a few days left in the month, so maybe we'll hear about it happening, but I don't expect it to happen. By the end of 2025, I honestly feel like, if from the outside looking in, I think Bassmaster made a lot of strategic moves this year that did not play out in their favor. There was a lot of negative press, and if I had to guess, I think Major League Fishing has lost its appetite maybe to purchase Bassmaster. I think, the way things are going right now, I would think the valuation of Bassmaster has dropped significantly, and from that standpoint, Major League Fishing might just say, "Hey, we're gonna wait on this to see if they right the ship, and if they do, we'll try to purchase it as the company's on the upswing, or we'll just continue to let the price fall and see how it plays out. I don't think Bassmaster has interest in purchasing Major League Fishing, so I don't know that it'll work that way. But I do think Major League Fishing would like to purchase Bassmaster. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, having said that, I've also heard a lot of rumbling that Major League Fishing still has a lot of issues on their side that they need to work out, more from a financial standpoint. Who knows? We'll see what happens with this. But I was definitely wrong on that. There has been no announced merger as of right now in 2025 that Bassmaster and Major League Fishing have merged. So I would say I would give myself a 3 out of 5 correct predictions on this. So that's the recap video for 2025. I will shoot a predictions video for 2026, which will come out shortly. And you guys get to hear what I think will happen next year. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Stay tuned. We'll have a new one coming out tomorrow.